Hello, race fans. Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Track with Daniel Blair. I'm Daniel Blair. Want to give a huge shout out to Cooper Tires for making this series happen. Thank you guys so much. I'm really excited about today. This is going to be a fun one. This is with a person that I go way back with, and I'm very happy that he is in the industry right now in a role that I think he likes. I'm going to find out right away. It's Trey Canard. Trey, welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Stoked to be, I guess, meeting somehow on Zoom, so that works.
This is the new Trey. This is how we do it now. The face to faces. We do it through the internet and through Zoom. So it's good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Hey,
so I'd like to start with you in your current role. I'm glad to see you back at the track, walking around in an official, in a very important role too, for a very important manufacturing team. Just kind of update us on what you got going on right now and what is your actual role, because I kind of know what you do, but I want to know everything you do. What's your job right now with Honda?
Yeah, so it's kind of, I guess the official title would be test rider. That's kind of like my main focus for the HRC team, American. So that's kind of like my role. But I end up at the races quite a lot, at least half of them. And I kind of just still have a little bit of input as far as, you know, what we've changed with the bike, and then what I see, what I think could be different with the bike. And then also just kind of, I don't want to use the word coach too much, because, you know, it's hard to coach guys that are at that, you know, Ken Roczen, Chase Sexton, Justin Braden, Cole Seeley kind of level, you know. So, but I do, you know, having had experience and then having an outside eye, I can lend a little bit of help. So, so that's kind of my two main focuses. I've done a little bit of production testing and, you know, just little things like that, little things that pop up. Like we're doing the 2021 intro here in a couple weeks. So little things like that, but I would say my main focus is test rider.
I saw you actually on Instagram the other day. Looked like you were on a machine that's maybe not out yet, that's coming here pretty soon, and you look like you're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's from the future, man. Yeah, I got to ride the 2021 last week, actually, man. I had a good time, and it's always nerve-wracking, you know, to ride a new bike and see what it's going to be like. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? And man, I had a really good time. I'll say that. So I'm excited for the possibilities of this new platform we're on, and I think it's going to lead to some good things.
You know, Honda in the past has been pretty courageous as far as making leaps with the bike. I remember the 09, that was a completely changeover. They've done that a few times, but it seems like they've found their groove with that machine right now. And I know the 21s, there's a lot of new to it, but it just seems like it's the culmination of a lot of development, almost like it's like the final piece to this puzzle. Was that the impression that you got? I mean, obviously you ride a factory bike too, so you know what it feels like to ride a factory bike, but from a production standpoint, seemed like this is like the final piece that they were putting together on this platform, even though there is some new stuff.
Yeah, you know, I would say that Honda's kind of like a revolutionary company. You know, they like to do really big things, aluminum frame, dual exhaust, things like that. So I would say that this is more of an evolutionary kind of bike. You know, it's they've taken what they've known and what has kind of worked, and it's like it's evolving. And so I think this new bike is to me, I think it's like not 5 steps right or left. It's kind of like 2 or 3 steps, you know, ahead. So I'm excited about it. And you know, you never know until it goes racing, but my first impression riding it was well, I was really stoked about it. So I'm excited to see what it does. We're gonna get to ride some Supercross on it here in a couple weeks, so that'll be a good time.
So before I get to your career, because I want to start from the beginning and go through some of the things in your earlier career that got you to where you are now. But I do have one question, because you kind of spurred this idea in my head. You're a test rider, which you obviously are very good at building a bike for yourself because you're a racer and you're trying to make the best machine for you, but you're not racing it. So what's it like being a test rider and then working with a Ken Roczen and a Justin Brayton and these guys that have their own style of the way they like things, and you're essentially building helping build their bike, not necessarily yours. So how complicated is that when you have different riders that are different styles and they're maybe not even the same as you? Like, was that kind of hard maybe at first? Is it something you're still working on and transitioning in?
Oh man, absolutely. I mean, as a rider, it's like you have your own little quirks and the things that you like. And I mean, sometimes it can be so far off of what everyone else likes that it can be seen as like taboo or like, man, that dude's weird. Like, I don't know how he rides that thing. So it's been a major learning curve for me, but I think also it's been really good for me as a rider. Like, there's certain like paths you go down as a rider, I think, that are maybe extreme or maybe not as beneficial as other things can be. So, I think what I've learned from Ken is he likes the bike, if it can be soft, he likes it pretty soft. He likes really fast rebound, kind of a more springy feel. And man, that has like crazy advantages in some ways, where a guy like Brayton, he likes his bike kind of more kind of front high, the rear kind of soft and slow. Although he kind of changed this year a little bit, but each guy kind of has their own thing. And I think the biggest thing for me is just learning what they like, and never like assuming that what I like is something that they're going to like. In the beginning, I think that was a hard lesson for me, because I would ride something. I'd be like, man, this is it. Like, they're going to love this. And they would ride it and they would be like, dude, this sucks. You know what? He said he liked this. Like, I'm
And you're
like,
like,
dude, I
this is
just kind of
perfect.
crushed me.
You're like, look at me go through the whoops. It's absolutely perfect. They're like, I can't even get through it. And you're like, okay, I forgot you're you. I got to make this for you. I can imagine that being frustrating at times, though, because sometimes you might think something's horrible and they're like, best setting you've come up with, Trey. And you're like, what?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it takes a little bit of like humbling yourself a little bit and kind of going like, I don't know exactly what they want. That like my biggest strength can be just getting them in the right ballpark, because obviously they're only going to be able to do the really fine tuning. But if I can get them close and then eliminate a lot of the stuff that they would go through to get there, I mean, I think that's pretty valuable. So, and I'm learning too what they like. I think now it's like, if we look at Ken and Chase right now, Ken likes his rear really kind of tall, and Chase is like the opposite. He likes the front tall. So I can ride a bike and go like, okay, this is going to be good for Ken, but man, it's not going to work for Chase. Like it needs to be different. So I think I'm trying to take that approach more so than like really trying to fine tune it. Like, as long as I can try to get them as close as possible, I think I'm a good.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just get it close, and then you guys take it and do what you want. I'll get you in the ballpark, but that makes sense. So I would like to go back and talk about your start. And right now, if you think of Oklahoma, you think of Forkner and Bogle and Bloss, like that group that's all out there at Robbie Raynor's. That's kind of like, that's Oklahoma right now. But when I think of Oklahoma, I think of you. I was lucky enough to spend some time out at your place a couple different times, but you to me were the guy from Oklahoma, at least from, at least in the last 10 to 20 years. I always think of you. It was Guy Cooper way back in the day, and it was Trey Canard in the last generation. Now you get the new group. But what was it like for you growing up racing, and how quickly did things become serious? I mean, you obviously you end up winning multiple championships and a lot of races in the sport, but at one point you're just a kid. Where did it start, and how did it start?
Yeah, I think, man, I was lucky, really. Like, early 90s motocross in Oklahoma was pretty big. I say big for our state. There was quite a few places to ride. There was a track called Motorcycle Raceway. 59th and Douglas is what most people know it as. And, we'd go there on a Saturday night, and there, you'd have guys like Johnny Marley and Robbie Raynard and Coop and like whoever was at Coop's house at the time. So I had a lot of exposure like pretty early on to like some of the best riders. And but how I got started was my parents owned a motorcycle dealership. And so my dad and my older brother rode. And so I just kind of followed in the suit, you know, and loved it, man. I was real small. I was 3 years old, and my dad was kind of scared to put me on a bike. So he got this bike and took the motor out of it. And like I had basically a Strider from the 90s, you know. I would push this little dirt bike down the hill, and then I would kind of like have someone come get me because I didn't want to go up the hill. It's pretty smart actually, but so yeah, that's kind of the origins of riding for me, and it just kind of slowly took shape. You know, got kind of a support ride through Team Green when I was 9, and it seemed like from there things just kind of slowly snowballed. And then by the time I was 15, 16 years old, I had some really cool opportunities. So man, it's kind of a blur, but man, I am super grateful for that era that I got to grow up in here in Oklahoma. And it's kind of cool to kind of see it maybe come a little bit full circle with some really good riders here right now. So yeah, it's cool, man. You know what the red dirt's all about. So we have fun.
I had some of my funnest days out at your place. We could do a whole Zoom call just on those days. For you, I always look at amateur racing, and I like to see the graduating class that turns professional. That's usually I would kind of zero in there in the 250B years turning A. And for you, you came in a really big, fast class. Like every once in a while, there's a class where there's 5 or 6 guys that are pretty impactful. And I'm thinking of Dungey and Stroop and Izzy and Zach. There's just this window of guys that are all maybe a year or 2 apart. What was that like for you being in that age group? Because it was so competitive, and then there was a lot of success early, which we're going to get to with you and Dungey. But you had a crazy fast amateur class, and they all blossomed right on the same time, and they had a big impact when they turned pro. What was it like growing up in those later years, the intermediate years, when you were about to go pro, knowing that the gate was full of, I mean, it was one of the most stacked classes I remember in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at kind of like just salaries and where like the health of motocross, like I think that's like kind of one of the pinnacles. I mean, you would go to an amateur race and there would be, you know, I don't even know how many riders, you know, and it wouldn't just be like Loretta's was like that. It was like everywhere you went, it was kind of packed out. So I feel really privileged, I think, to grow up in that time, because I think that it really elevated a lot of the riders' games. You know, it just in my group, you know, we had Stroop and Izzy who were kind of like guys of my class. And then, you know, Dunge and Kyle Cunningham and Matt Lemoyne and like all these guys that there was so many. You'd go to a local race in Texas and it was like the same guys you're racing at the nationals, you're racing every weekend. So I really think that kind of elevated everyone's riding. But man, it was pretty humbling a lot of times, because I wasn't the top guy for most of my amateur career. I was always kind of like on that 4th and 5th kind of fringe area. I might win a moto or 2 here and there, but I really think, you know, man, just growing up in that time, it really kind of developed me as a rider. And then when I got to that professional, really high stress kind of competitive career, it's like I felt like I was almost ready or belonged. So yeah, I don't know if that has a lot to do with it, but man, I think it really kind of helped elevate a lot of us, because pretty much all of us jumped in right away and were, you know, a lot of us winning races and having factory rides. And so it was pretty cool to be a part of that little group.
Yeah, I probably toughened you guys up just having to race that many good guys. And you mentioned Lemoyne and Cunningham. They were in Texas, so I'm assuming you saw them a lot. Like you said, not even just at the big races, but I'm just, again, there's these years that come out where you're like, wow, there's like 4 or 5 of these guys that all have success right away out of the same age group. And then you'll have some where there's 1 or 2 or maybe 3, but yeah, you guys had a crazy one. When did the switch to Geico, or the Geico, I don't know if it was Geico then, but you were a Team Green guy, I know, but then you went to the Honda team, which you transitioned into the pro career. How did that come about, and how did they approach you? And I mean, and then obviously, how grateful were you to get onto a team that you would eventually go on to win championships for?
Yeah, no, that was crazy. It was '06, I think, at Loretta Lynn's, and I really that summer like really took my training seriously. You know, I ran or did whatever as a kid. You know, it was like you'd always hear so and so ran 6 miles, and it's like they did that every day or whatever. And I kind of dabbled in training, and we always rode a lot. But that summer in '06, I got a physical trainer and had a great riding coach, and um, just put in a lot of work and really took things seriously. And it really kind of showed through the next amateur races. I won everything at Ponca City that year. If anyone even remembers Ponca City. Oh, I guess they
Oh
still
yeah,
race.
it's back. It's
Uh,
back.
yeah, so Ponca, I like won pretty much every moto, and then I did the same thing at Loretta's that year. And I remember Ziggy from Factory Connection came up to me, I think like maybe like a couple days from the end at Loretta's, and he's like, "Hey, we want to talk to you about a ride." And I was thinking, man, I already have a pretty good suspension team. You know, I think I just kind of stick where I'm at. And I didn't even realize that he was like, we want to take you to the team. And I like, it didn't even make sense. You know, I
You're like,
didn't
wait,
think,
what? I thought you wanted to do my suspension. It's like, no, it already works great. You're like, no. Look, we want to take all of you in house. We want to steal you away. And you're like, oh, okay.
I was like, I'm not sure I'm your guy. Like, I don't know. Cause I never really been that guy, you know? So that was crazy, man. And then shortly after that, I was a Kawasaki Team Green guy, and a guy named Mike Fisher was kind of the I guess team manager for Kawasaki had talked to me, and actually ended up riding a couple bikes. You know, I had an offer from Pro Circuit and an offer from Factory Connection at the time, and I like didn't know what to do. You know, here I was like 6 months ago. I was like hoping someday I could be on a team, and I had to kind of choose between two of the best teams. And so I would talk to a friend of mine, Marshall Plum, who a lot of people know, works for Dunlop and has been in the sport for a long time, works here in Oklahoma. And he was like, you should ask to ride both of the bikes, and then you kind of pick from there. So I rode both bikes, and man, it was crazy. I can't even think of what that was like. But I ended up breaking my collarbone on the Pro Circuit bike. And there was a couple of things like I could take my mechanic with me, which was huge to go to Factory Connection, because my mechanic, Brent Presnell, had actually dropped out of college to come be my mechanic as a 14-year-old kid because my dad passed away. So I felt like really indebted to that, you know, and I really wanted to see, you know, his dream through and be loyal to what he had done for me. So that was kind of one of the things that really swung me, and man, it was crazy, and straight away went racing. So it was cool.
All right, let's talk about something really cool and unique. You don't see it all the time, but I'd say traditionally most people come into the sport, the rookie years all sloppy, messy. You see talent, but it's not great. I mean, we saw it from Jet Lawrence this year, right? Like unbelievable talent, but you know, learning curve, whatever. And then there's Trey Canard. Explain to me how that happened in the rookie season, like how you were able. I mean, you just don't see that often, and even you, like Supercross. Supercross is such a harder transition than motocross. Maybe you see it in outdoor. Stewart won his first outdoor title. Pastrana won his first outdoor title. Supercross took a minute. Not with you. How'd that even happen? Explain that to me.
I'm still trying to figure it out. No, I mean, it was like, the first thing I'll say is that it was one of the biggest blessings, like, to be able to do that, but it was also a little bit of a curse, you know, because I had success. I mean, my first race I won, so I just thought,
Yeah.
man, this is how it's going to be. And it was almost like the first race, like I got the whole shot, and I kind of had a bit of a gap, and so I had this expectation that that's how it should always be, which kind of, I think, maybe I put so much pressure on myself from that point, made it kind of tough. But man, I don't know, man. For whatever reason, I had a lot of drive in that year. I don't know what it was. Like, I don't know what I had to prove. Like, I don't know. But I mean, I like ate, slept, rode. Like, I mean, it was everything. I was putting everything to that, and like literally, I mean, I was like not hanging out with friends, or it was like I was on this crazy mission, and I don't know, man. It just, things just spiraled and went really well. So yeah, I can't totally explain it, man. I'm grateful that it happened, and it's a really cool kind of part of my story that I'm super grateful for. But man, what a crazy series, and to kind of have it come down to the last round with RV of all people. I mean, that was something that's really, really special to me. So
If you can remember back then, what was the last round like? I mean, again, you're a rookie. You've never been to a last round. This was your first time closing out a series. Again, you're a rookie, yet for some reason you're extremely like comfortable in the environment the whole time. You look like a vet the whole time, but you're not. You're a rookie. You're young. You're a kid, and then you go in the final round and you win a championship. I mean, what was what was the night before like?
it was pretty good actually, because the weekend before in Detroit, I'd crashed, and our bike then had this massive carburetor on it, and if you fell over, like, you might not get it started. So I fell over, kind of got cross-roaded. I was in second in Detroit behind RV, and I literally had to turn the petcock off and drain the carburetor, like dump the bike over, kick on it, and turn the gas back on and go. And it took me like a whole lap. So I got lapped, and so I still ended up 10th place. But at that point, it was like the pressure was gone, because everyone was looking at RV. He's the guy, he'd won so many championships, and this was kind of like the last one he hadn't won, and it was like just a shoe in, like RV's obviously going to win. So after Detroit, it was like, shoot, man, I don't have anything to lose, like if I get beat by this guy, I mean, he's kind of the best in that class, and I really had nothing to lose. So it really took all the pressure off of me, and I felt calm. I had this motto, and I'm like embarrassed to say it now, but like I always said I would give 200%. If the next guy was going to give 100%, I'd do my best to give 100 more percent. And it's so goofy, it's one of those things you say when you're 17 years old, but I definitely lived it in that season, and I think that was kind of what kind of propelled me to be able to go, like, you know what, I'll just do my best, and whatever happens, happens. And I think that really helped me kind of stay focused and present, and not really be as overwhelmed by the kind of the task at hand.
Just go for it. Just go.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good. Zach Osborne told me once that the night he won the Supercross title in Vegas, we know the very dramatic ending with him and Joey Savacci. When he fell in the first turn, he said that the pressure was all off because it was over pretty much. So he just rode the wheels off the bike without any thought of championship, and then that mentality got him where he needed to be in the last corner, and he got the title. So I'm assuming it's something like that, where you kind of go blank and go, no pressure, no worries. I'm just going to ride as hard as I can and see. And sometimes that's how this dirt bike thing is confusing, man. Sometimes the less you think, the better you do. And it's like, I'm assuming it's one of those moments.
For sure. And it's, man, I wish I could tap into that in so many aspects of life, because I mean, really, like the worrying about things, and trying to figure out where you fit in and how you measure up, and if you're good enough, if you're bad, it's all these different things. If you can just put that aside, I mean, then you can truly kind of, I think, reach your potential, because you're not really worried about, who's thinking what, or if you're this, or what's gonna happen. You're just in the moment, and you're doing what you need to do. And I think that's a really sweet place to find, if and when you can find it.
And like you just said, you're like, where was that? How can I find that again? You know, sometimes, like you said, circumstances kind of create that sometimes. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can imagine. Something funny I just want to say, my son rides, he's 10 years old, he's just a little guy, and I'm all about fundamentals with him. Like, we go to the track, body positioning, and everyone laughs because he is like majorly elbows up. Like, his elbows are always up. And I've had people like look at photos and go, man, he looks like a little Trey Canard, because you always had big elbows. You would ride with your head low. Where'd that come? Was that natural, or did you said you had a coach? Did someone really hammer you on those fundamentals? Because again, I have really hammered my son on it, and he's little Trey Canard out there. He wears fly gear, so he looks just like you. I'm just wondering where you got it, because apparently he gets it from you. I don't know.
No, I think when I was really young, like, parents, especially if they haven't ridden at much of a level, they can look at other riders and go like, oh, wow, do that. And for me, Robbie Raynard was the guy in Oklahoma. And so, I mean, you saw Robbie, he was always like just perfect. And so, yeah, I think that was like the first thing that, my parents just kind of like, it was easy, elbows up, they'd see you and you'd be like, all right, yeah, I'm doing it. Cool. But I did have a good coach too, that I think really drilled the rest of those things into me, a guy named Shannon Nide. And, man, I really appreciate all the things that people like him have poured into me, because I really think, man, that the basics and the fundamentals, whenever you're in that, you're not worrying about everything, all the stuff that has been practiced and you've worked on for your whole life really shines through. So, and I had a lot of really cool people that poured into me that way, and I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah, fundamentally, you always were spot on. And now, of course, you got Ken Roczen, you got Chase Sexton, Justin Brayton. Like, those are like three of the most fundamentally sound riders I've ever seen too. So I'm sure when you watch them, you're like, yeah, you got it going on for sure. I'm not going to correct nothing on that. My next question for you is, again, now in your role, you're a test rider. You're working for Factory HRC. You're helping Ken Roczen and now the new two-time champ Chase Sexton develop their bikes and everything. But I can't imagine you knew all the things you knew now then. You learn as you go. What was it like for you in those early years when, again, you win as a rookie, you develop, you go to back it up, you end up getting an outdoor title? Did you know much about testing and training, not training, but testing the bike, building it the way you need to be? I mean, or were you like some riders, just no clue and just ride what they give you?
Yeah, no, I remember, so whenever I went to, I remember I just told you about test riding the Pro Circuit bike and then the Factory Connection bike. I remember being super nervous, like, these guys are gonna just find out right away that I'm a fraud. I don't know what am I gonna say? Yeah, the bike's sick. That's about it. But I rode for No Fear, the gear company then, and a guy named Skip Norfolk, who is legendary in my eyes. He told me, he said, look, man, the best thing that you can do is just be honest. If you don't feel anything, you don't feel anything. And if you do, tell them what you felt. And if it's bad, tell them it's bad. If it's good, tell them it's good. And so I think I've always had that philosophy. I think that was really helpful for me, to just be honest, and if I don't feel anything, even if they fit a completely different setting, I need to be honest and just say, hey man, I don't feel it, or I do, or whatever. But I would say, man, that's something I really had to develop, because no one teaches you that. You don't really have guys coaching you to set your bike up. It's kind of, for me, it was a couple hard years where I felt really uncomfortable, and so I dug as deep as I could into it, and maybe too deep. I think I got to where I knew too much. I was in the middle of motos going, I think we need to put a little more preload on the mainspring. This might be a little bit better, which is
You're
like,
supposed to be racing.
yeah,
Now your brain's thinking of,
way too far gone. But I think there's a sweet balance there, and I think that the guys that do really well are able to know enough. But not know too much and not dwell on it too much. And so there was some years that I really worked on those things, and I learned a whole lot, and I think it really helped me, along with kind of the philosophy of just be honest. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question fully, but yeah, I think that's kind of the things, the ingredients that kind of, I'm not saying I'm the best test rider now, but they're the ingredients that kind of, I think, probably led me to the opportunity that I have.
Do you feel like when it comes to bike setup, usually when you start learning, because I mean, at some point you don't know anything. You're just riding the bike. You don't know if it's stiff, soft, whatever. And then I feel like with racers, like when they first start to learn it, they go backwards because now they question everything. Everything sucks. They don't even know why. They can't say what they want or feel, but they're starting to at least recognize something's wrong. I feel like there's like a year or two backwards. And then all of a sudden it starts to make sense. And then you make like 4 steps forward once you go, oh, this is how I communicate what I don't like. But I always feel like as soon as, like for me, when I first started learning about the bike, I got worse because all I could think about was the problems, even though I didn't really understand them yet. And then once I got it, I'm like, now I can set a bike up. But for me, it felt like it went way backwards at first. Was it the same for you?
I mean, for sure. Yeah. I think the kind of the end of my very first year, I had a really tough outdoor season, and ended up breaking my femur at the end of it. And I was kind of like, what can I do better? And I think I started to do exactly like you're saying. I tried to analyze the bike, and then I started tinkering, and then, before you know it, you're off in left field. So yeah, I think, to me, like, ignorance is bliss a lot of times. If you have a good bike, man, be ignorant. Like, just go ride the thing. But it's sometimes when maybe you have things you're struggling with that you got to kind of dig a little deeper. But yeah, man, like, even if I see something with the bikes now, and like maybe I think they could be doing something a little differently, sometimes I won't even say anything if it's not a complaint, because it might be doing something that's really good that they like. And if it's doing something, that bad, I don't want to be the guy to make that so blatantly obvious that it's all you dwell on, So I think there's a lot to be said for just being accountable as a rider, and understanding that some days are just bad days. Some days you don't ride well. Some days your fitness isn't there, and it's not always the bike. But man, it is a razor's edge balance of knowing too much, not enough, when to take the blame on yourself, when to put it on the bike. And I think that's what makes our sport so cool. There's so many different pieces that have to come together for you to be a champion. That when you do, and when you find it, it's pretty special.
When you think about a bike too, I've been told this before, that I set your bike up to be at race pace. So if you're out kind of just 85%, it won't work right. And when you push the limits, that's when it will work right. And it's like, that is so hard to accept sometimes as a rider, as you're saying, this thing will only work if I ride it to the ragged edge. If I had all back off, it won't work. Like, I mean, you know how it goes. Like you said, sometimes that ignorance is good because you just don't know. I just feel like the more you know, the more you get into trouble. And it's better to just, like, I've always thought, get the bike close and then just try to adapt the best that I can, because you're never going to find that perfect setting. Or again, you might, but then on some days when you're not feeling right, the bike might be perfect, but you're off, and now you go into a whole new direction and you ruin something you had because you had a bad day. Is that balance just, I mean, we always talk about how physical and mental the sport is, but on the mental side, that's got to be just pressuring, right? To ride that fine line, like you're saying.
Yeah, and the thing about our sport too is there so many different variables. It's not like we're going road racing and the surface has been the same for 2 or 3 years, and we know that if the weather's like this, it's going to do that. Man, if Salt Lake City is a perfect example. Those guys rode pretty much 7 different tracks, and it's the same dirt, it's the same environment. It came down to how windy it was that day, or what time of the day the race was. And so there was a couple races where the guys weren't all that excited about the bike, and we basically rode the same bike the next couple days, and it was good. So it's an ever elusive target, and something that you've got to be kind of flexible enough to go. This might not always make sense, but we've just got to kind of follow what we do know, and try to adjust as best as we can. Because that's the thing. The bike's got to be good at the main event. You know, that's all that matters, and all it takes is the one click or the right setting to get you there. So, man, it's a battle. It is a battle, but I've enjoyed it because it's similar to racing. You know, that I get the same kind of excitement or joy out of trying to find the comfort for those guys, and so it brings me a lot of joy to see them when they're really at their potential.
Let's talk about these guys for a little bit. You got Ken Roczen in the prime of his career. He's won a bunch of races. You've been at that point. You've been at your prime. You've got Trey Sexton now coming in. You've been a rookie for the same team, so you kind of know exactly where they're both at in their career. What's it like for you to work with them? I know they're different, so you got to approach them differently. But what is it like? Let's start with Ken Roczen, working with someone of his talent, his ability, his popularity. I mean, he's so likable. He's Kenny, you know. What's it like working with someone like him, who at the same time is going through tough hurdles that he's had to go through, similar to you? I mean, you have a lot in common in that way. What's it like working with him directly, knowing that he goes through some of those things that you went through right when he's in the prime of his career, chasing championships?
Yeah, I mean, I relate to Ken a lot of ways. I mean, um, I would say that his injuries are maybe more serious than mine were. You know, I had a lot over several different years, and obviously my back was a very scary thing. But I think that you know, his have really, I think, been difficult for him to adapt and for his body to recuperate. You know, I think he's probably at the best that he's been yet as far as his health is concerned. Um, Obviously this summer he's taken off, but I think as far as movement and just being normal with his body, I think he's at the best that he could and is going to be at this point, which I think is pretty close to 100%, if not 100%. But you know, I really enjoy working with him because I see what he's had to overcome, and I think that's in ways a lot sweeter than if he were to just have won from when he crashed until now, because you really don't take it for granted, and it builds a certain vulnerability, I think, with fans. I mean, people can relate to struggle, like people struggle every day. And so to see your hero or someone that is especially is as nice a person as Ken is, to see him struggle, you can really relate to that. And I think, man, he's just done such a good job at managing kind of being people's role model, I guess you could say, and taking the time for people. I've really enjoyed it, man, and I think this next year is going to be really good for him. I think he's going to be in a really good spot. I think for Chase, man, I relate to him a little bit too because he's so young. He's 20 years old. Like, that's crazy. And I was 19, 20 years old when I came onto the 450. So I relate to being just crazy young against you know, men, you know,
This
Osborne,
class of like
guys.
established dudes, and you're like this kid still, and you're like, I look up to you, but I'm about to beat you.
Right, exactly. You know, it's cool, but I really appreciate Chase. He's such a good person, and I'm excited for him. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. Obviously, I don't know him super well at this point. I've only worked with him, kind of helped a little bit with Geico things just here and there, but really just a couple races. So it's been really cool to see, you know, him and man, the dude's talented. I think especially, you know, he's working with I'm like, dude, James needs to come to the races, you know, because I'm like, I'm a fan of James. So
And you're like, hey,
a lot of
Chase,
cool things.
Chase, can I come out and hang out with you guys? I want to hang out with James.
Hey, the team that I need to test
At
your house.
James's. You've seen the videos. I mean, yeah, your facility was rad. I had a good time there, but I don't know, man. That place is manicured. Like, that's something else, dude. I don't know if you've ever been there before. I never have, but that'd be a bucket list thing. And Chase is there every day now.
No, man. We rode there last year because the sandbox where Ken and Chase were at was flooded out, ton of rain. So we went to James, and I was like, man, we're going to James's house. I was so good. But dude, when I got there, those jumps are big. I was like needing to follow someone, but man, it was cool. I was like, just my 12-year-old self was just like having the best day of his life.
So, since we're on the topic of James Stewart, I gotta say, we got the Bubba Scrub, right? Everybody knows the Bubba Scrub. You and him had some of the filthiest battles ever, and I'm gonna throw it out there, and the Stewart fans might be mad, but I've seen you do some scrubs that might be dirtier. And I remember watching one time you guys were battling, and it was like art. You guys were scrubbing everything, but I told everybody, I think Trey Canard might have a better scrub than Stewart, and I'll take the beating publicly, whatever. But dude, you guys both were pretty gnarly that way. What was it like racing him? Because there was a few battles that stand out in my mind that just legendary between you two.
Oh man, it was pretty weird, honestly. I think there's a couple of things that kind of held me back in my career, and one of them was like I got around guys like James and Chad and, you know, even RV, and I like was like, you know, whoa, like I don't belong here. You know, these guys are, because I idolized them. You know, I thought, man, these guys are the best in the world. I remember, I think I was like 15 or 16, and someone told me, yeah, you'll probably race James Stewart someday, and I was like, yeah, right. Like, I'll never be that good. So it was pretty tough. You know, I really like idolized him, you know. So I think to go race him, I was like nervous half the time. But man, it was fun racing him. I think in particular, he was like crafty, you know, really smart. And I know people say that both of us probably took a lot of chances, but man, he was just going so much faster than people so many times. Just puts him in some difficult situations. But man, it was fun. I think the race that a lot of people talked to me about was Millville in 13, and I think that was the funnest race of my life. Like it was
that's one of them. That's
cool,
one of them.
man. It was like we were scrubbing the jumps so hard, and it was just so fun, man. And I saw Big James every lap, like cheering James on, which was like, I'm like, dude, that's Big James.
And you know, it's bad when you're battling a guy and you're a fan of his dad. just for being there, right? Like, it's Big James. I'm battling his kid.
Yeah, check it out, Big James.
Dude, no, I can't imagine what it was like to even go that speed with him. Because, like I said, the couple that I remember, it's like you guys just went off into this like new warp speed. And you weren't gonna like back off. And again, that's how it had to been hard to balance, knowing that this guy's your idol, but at the same time, like you're programmed and prepped to win. But it's James Stewart, but I gotta beat him, but I want his autograph too, so I don't know what to do here. You know, like I can only imagine the thoughts going through your brain. Like you said, instead of wondering about suspension, like, should I change this next moto? Having to battle him, there's probably a lot of things going through your brain. Like, I can't believe this.
Oh, for sure. I remember there was a movie called The Great Outdoors, which I don't know, a lot of the younger kids don't like to see, but I remember in the first one, James was talking about all these hand signals and stuff that Big James did. I remember racing him and going like, oh, dude, there it is.
And you're like trying to figure out what it is. Like, what is that?
What does that mean? That's some sort of strategy.
Yeah, that's wild, man. I can't even imagine. I do want to pivot this a little bit away from racing for a second. And I mean, it goes alongside racing too, but you've always had a strong faith that you're not shy about, you're not bashful. It's something that's a big part of you. Where does that faith come from as far as when it became such an important part of your life? Because for me, I went to a private school growing up. You know, I followed the rules. I did everything like I was supposed to. In my early adult life, I kind of ventured, I wouldn't say ventured off, but it became less prevalent in my life. And now as I'm a dad now, I got 2 kids. So I mean, my faith has completely changed as I've gotten older. But for you, I've always respected the fact that you weren't afraid to talk about it. And I'd like to give you the opportunity to do that now, but I'd like to know where that all started and where that faith became so strong, because it happens to different people at different times. So for you, when and where was that?
Yeah, no, I joke about this a lot, and it's probably like maybe a little too cartoonish to say, or maybe not politically correct, but I tell people I was a drug baby. You know, my mom drugged me to church. She drugged me to Bible camp. She drugged me all over the place. And so, I mean, from an early age, it was just where I was. You know, it was the environment. I'd say it was more probably my parents' faith, and I was just kind of along for the ride. Um, I learned a lot of great things from that. But I think really when my dad passed away, you know, I was 12, and there was something about that was that I you know, I don't wish on any 12-year-old, um, but it brought the seriousness of life to me, you know, and I think there are things that I like grieve about that, because there were certain things that I kind of lost in childhood, as far as you know, not every 12-year-old should have to have kind of a seriousness about them. But it really shook me on a big level, and made me question a lot of things, you know, and I think for me, it was kind of the thing that really solidified my faith, being personal, because I had to ask myself a lot of hard questions, you know, and I think there was a lot of great people. You know, I think a lot of people's experience with, especially the Christian faith, is they see hypocritical people. They see people maybe saying something and doing another. And for me, whenever my dad passed away, I saw the best in people. You know, I saw, you know, people coming to our aid, supporting us, so I saw the best of that. So I think that's part of it. But I think from then on, I really like I was pretty bold, you know, and that put me in a lot of positions to where I had to explain myself. You know, I had a lot of hard questions, like, you know, if God loves you so much, how come you get hurt? You know, things like that I think that were tough for me, and things I had to wrestle with. You know, and so I think that the more I had to dig, and the more I tried to understand who I saw as the God of the Bible, the deeper my faith got. And so I see that in so many ways. And I think maybe early on it was probably not as personal. It was probably more about just being a good person, and you know, trying to get on the podium and say certain things. But I think as my faith progressed, as life progressed, I really realized that, man, this is way bigger than winning races. It's way bigger than you know, just being a good person. And I think it for me, it's in all aspects of life, you know, and it's important to me, because um, I see hope. I see a lot of peace. I see a lot of grace. And I see, in hard situations, I see a lot of hope in that. And so, um, yeah, I hope I don't go too far with that. But and there's certainly been times in my life where I was self-righteous, and you know, really thought that my faith was better than others, or that kind of thing. And I regret that. But I think as I've gotten older, and as my faith has shaped, I've realized more than anything, it's just about, for me, having a relationship with what I believe to be the creator of the universe, and having a deep rooted community that isn't broken over politics, isn't over everything you see happening in our country right now. And so to me, it's about that. You know, it's not necessarily about winning races and having an interview as much as it is really living out what you believe. And I strive for that. Man, I'm far from perfect, but I really strive for that. And I hope that the way that I've portrayed my faith has been genuine. Like that's my biggest goal. I think that's the biggest harm to the Christian faith is a disingenuineness or kind of hypocrisy. But more than anything, I hope that people could see a light in me that that I really believe is you know, from God, and something that He offers all people. So yeah, no, hopefully that's not too winded, but it's still, I mean, it's a huge part of my life and something that will always be. And yeah, I'm happy to live that out and do my best with it.
No, I for me, it's you've always been super authentic. It's always come across as real and super organic, and I think a lot of people do appreciate that. So I certainly do. A couple more questions before I let you go. I want to know, in your career, the best moment. And you've won championships, the donation. You've done so much. But what is the number one thing that stands out on your racing career where you could just say that's the top? That's the best moment I had, and it might not even have been a win. Sometimes it's not always what you think. So I'm asking you to be a little creative here. If you look through all your successes and failures, where do you look back and go, that's my highest moment that I can remember?
Yeah, I get asked this quite a bit, and I think I've got a few. Like, and I don't know if there's a three-seater for your favorite, um, but there's a few. And the first one I think is my very first win in Atlanta in the lights class. Dude, I just remember crossing the finish line, and I just was like, I'd never dreamed in a million years that this would happen. You know, like I hoped for it, and I really wanted it to happen. I just didn't think it would. Like deep down, if I'm telling the truth, I thought, man, I'll never do that. And so to do it was like unbelievable. So that's one. I think the second one for is Motocross of Nations. Um, I just remember racing. I was like in 15th. I crashed in the first turn, both motos, and like literally the entire length of the track, there was cheering. You know, you can hear it sometimes when you're riding, especially if it's loud. And the entire lap, I could hear people screaming, which was like pretty surreal. And then I think kind of one of the best parts of my career too was my first race back from my back injury. I didn't win it. I got second. I almost won it. If Davey Millsaps hadn't trained so much that off season, I think I would have won it. But I got to lap 18. I was like, yeah, Davey's faded these last couple of years. I think I got this. And man, he put it on hard. But I don't know, man. There was something about that race that was like a year earlier. I thought for sure I was just happy to be alive. And like, I didn't think I was going to race. Like, I really didn't for at least a month or two. And so to have that moment of coming back and then coming back kind of close to the top was like unbelievable. That was a really cool moment.
Both good. Again, sometimes not even a win is a win. Just, I mean, obviously you love dirt bikes, right? That's why you're
Yeah,
still doing it. So if you can come back from an injury that you thought you'd never race again and get on the podium, I mean, I feel like that one would have a different type of feeling. Not like a disbelief, like the win. That was a disbelief moment. This is more of a like, wow, I can really be where I was and I can be back here, like unbelievable. I can imagine that's where your faith again is so strong, because of moments like that where you're able to do something that you never thought you would be able to do again. That's what it seems like to me.
absolutely, man. I think that year, 2012, rocked me, rocked my faith. I mean, I didn't just break my back in that crash. Like 6 weeks before that, I broke my collarbone. And then a few months before that, I broke my femur. And then a few months before that, I broke my femur. So
Ah,
there was just like this kind of 8-month period that was just like, just thing after thing after thing. And so 2012 was a really hard year for me emotionally, but man, it was the year I grew the most in my faith, and kind of saw outside of myself for my first time. You know, racing so much about you, but to have that year off and to be able to see other people are dealing with life. And so for me, that was a huge moment. So yeah, I look back on it and I'm super grateful.
Last question, Trey. We've talked about the past. We've talked a little bit about the current. This one's going to be the hardest one. 10 years from now, what are you doing? How old are you now, actually? How old are you now?
I'm 30 the 17th. So
30. Hey, happy birthday.
Happy 30.
So when you're turning 40, what are you doing? I mean, take it anywhere. What are you doing in life 10 years from now?
Man, I have no idea.
What do you want to do? What do you want to do?
I think the first thing I want to do is I want to be a great dad. Like, I think we're kicking around, you know, maybe trying here pretty soon. So, man, I'm up to the point in my life where like I really want to be a dad. And so that, I mean, if I could have a couple redheaded little hellions running around, like I would be super stoked about that. But as far as career and everything like that, man, I really have no idea. There's so many things that I see. Obviously, I don't think I can test ride at this level for forever. I want.
Why not? Chad can. Creighton can.
Maybe I underestimate myself. I don't know.
Yeah, you are, dude. Chad will be racing in 2030. So.
Right. So yeah, I don't know, man. I really enjoy this way more than I thought I would. So I definitely want to be involved in some way. But I'm really interested in mentorship, especially kids that don't have mentorship. You know, whether it's due to just circumstances. You know, I look back to my life being 12 years old and losing my father, and there's so many people that got me through that moment, and there's kids in this world that don't get that opportunity. And so I really think about that a lot. I'm also super interested in psychology. It just amazes me, like the brain. It's doing things and it creates certain habits and that kind of thing. So, man, I don't know. The one thing I do know though is I want to be a good dad. So hopefully you'll see that in 10 years.
So a couple options out there, but the good dad one, that's on the calendar. So make it happen. Well, Trey, thanks for doing this today, man. It's always good to talk to you. Again, it's good to see you at the races. I'm glad you're having fun. And you got some fast guys on that Honda team that could definitely use your knowledge and your experience. Like I said, you tie into both those riders so well. Just it's a perfect combination, and I'm really glad that you're happy, and I'm glad that you're around the track. Thanks, man. I really appreciate the time. I had fun. All right. Have a good summer and fall, and I'm sure I'll see you soon. All right, guys. We'll see you later. See ya.